Welcome to Generation AI, the show where we explore how AI is reshaping our generation. I'm Derek Staahl. On the show today, AI in policing. Some police departments are using AI to save time in the more mundane parts of the job, but critics argue there are real risks here. We'll hear from the Scottsdale Police Department and the Electronic Frontier Foundation. First, let's get straight to the headlines. President Trump is taking a more hands-on approach with the AI industry. The president just signed an executive order this week asking tech companies to give the government 30 days to review new AI models before releasing them publicly. This is a voluntary 30-day review. Earlier this month, the president scrapped a version of this very executive order, which sought a 90-day review just hours before he was supposed to sign it. The Trump administration has previously advocated for a very hands-off approach to AI to give the industry as much flexibility as possible in the race against China. The president says this new review period is designed to give the government time to assess cybersecurity risk and protect infrastructure. Wall Street is bracing for what could be a historic series of initial public offerings. Anthropic filed some paperwork this week that could set it up to go public as soon as this fall. Elon Musk's SpaceX and rival OpenAI are also racing to go public this year. Last week, Anthropic officially passed OpenAI as the world's most valuable AI startup. It raised a new round of financing that put the company's value at $965 billion. OpenAI's last valuation was at $850 billion. Everyday investors can now use AI to actively manage their portfolios. Trading platform Robinhood now lets customers link their favorite AI agents to their accounts. So that means a machine can not only pick stocks, but actually buy and sell stocks on behalf of users. AI can also access virtual versions of a customer's Robinhood credit card and make purchases based on instructions. Robinhood says users can place limits on the new functionality or require any action to be approved by them before executing. The Tribeca Film Festival is underway, and next week the festival will debut a first-of-its-kind film.
میدونستید بنفشه تنها گلیه که تو تاریکی رشد میکنه؟
That's a clip from Dreams of Violets. It's the first AI-generated feature-length film to be accepted at a major film festival. It's a 75-minute dramatization of anti-government resistance in Iran. Every image, every person is AI-generated. But the filmmakers say it's all based on journalistic reports, photographs, and eyewitness accounts of the government crackdown on protests earlier this year.
There's no way for me to go get millions of dollars to make this film.
That's first-time director Ash Kusha. He worked with his brother to create this film. They say it cost just $2,000 to produce and 2 months to make. For the AI programs to generate all the film's imagery, that's a fraction of the time and the money it would take with traditional methods. The brothers acknowledged the genuine sensitivities of people working in the industry about the unknown impacts of AI, but they say new types of jobs will undoubtedly be created in the AI film generation world. Modern airplanes already have a lot of automation built into them, but a Boston company is working towards a new type of AI-powered autopilot. A company called Merlin Labs is developing software that could be bolted on to existing airplanes, and it could one day allow for flights without pilots. This software doesn't just handle takeoffs, landings, and flying the plane. It can also listen to the air traffic controllers and respond in a computerized voice and make decisions about weather and routing. These new AI-assisted systems are designed to handle a broader range of unexpected situations than the traditional rule-based automation that we currently have in aircraft.
It's a challenging problem for the automation, but once you crack the code, then it's so much easier on the pilot.
You seem pretty confident over there.
Oh, yeah.
You seem pretty relaxed. Should I be this relaxed?
Yeah.
And by the way, the AI did land them safely. Merlin Labs says fully pilotless passenger flights are still pretty far off. Instead, the military may be this system's first big proving ground. Merlin Labs recently got a $100 million contract with the U.S. Air Force to eventually bring the technology to C-130 cargo planes. Coming up on Generation AI, Scottsdale Police are using an AI system to help write police reports. We'll take a look at the debate over whether the technology's benefits are worth the risks. Generation AI continues after this. Welcome back to Generation AI. Across the country, some law enforcement agencies are turning to AI to catch criminals and handle some of the more mundane aspects of the job. But some critics argue these AI tools come with real risks. One of the tools leverages an officer's body camera video to help write police reports. Scottsdale-based Axon offers a product called Draft One, which transcribes audio from body camera footage and produces a first draft of a police report. Scottsdale Police started using Draft One in a pilot program last year, and they say it saves at least 30 minutes of officer time for each report.
You don't have to wait till you go back to the station to dock your camera, to upload your camera, so officers can, in their cars, go into evidence.com, they can pull up their reports, and they can use Draft One and instantly have a draft. It helps because throughout the officer's shift, they're more available to take calls for service, to be available to the public, to be community policing.
That was Sergeant Paul Wright. He says freeing up staff time is especially useful at a moment like this when a lot of departments are facing budget pressures and struggling to recruit and retain officers. But critics warn these AI-generated reports could contain consequential mistakes. My next guest is making a return visit to Generation AI. Dave Moss is the investigations director at the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Dave, welcome back to Generation AI.
Always glad to be in Arizona, if only virtually.
Thanks for being here. Are these AI-written police reports a cause for concern in your view?
Absolutely. I mean, to me, it seems like sloppy at best or dangerous at worst. Like, this is really downgrading the necessity of policing or the job of policing by saying that, well, thinking through what happened in an incident is not worth an officer's time. Getting it right is not worth an officer's time. And to me, using AI here, it's just going to introduce the same problems that we see in schools when students use it for plagiarism, when we see it in courts where lawyers are introducing, citations that don't exist. This is just going to start ending up in police work, ultimately resulting in bad policing, maybe even people getting off the hook because of mistakes that were made by the AI system. But it could also result in bias or mistakes that put innocent people in the crosshairs of an investigation.
Are your concerns theoretical, or have you seen any concrete examples of police using AI and the AI getting things wrong?
So this is going to sound like a joke, but there was a case in Utah recently where the police report said that an officer turned into a frog midway through responding to an incident. That's what the AI thought happened. Somebody turned into a frog. Turned out what happened is that the AI could not distinguish between what was happening on the scene and what was happening on the television. The Princess and the Frog was playing in the background, and Axon just merged that together. And so if you think of every incident where there's multiple people talking, maybe in different languages, maybe using different kinds of idioms and slang, and the AI just kind of throwing that together and making up something, and an officer not checking it closely enough, I mean, those are the kinds of problems that we expect to happen, and we're already starting to see them happen.
Now, Scottsdale Police does say that any report that's written with this AI system will include a disclaimer in the report itself, and they say that, they require, as a matter of policy, human verification before the report is submitted. Take a listen to what they had to say.
It's very important that we get those details right in the reports. Not just initially, but again for courts, for records, for prosecution. This isn't ChatGPT. It's not bringing in content that wasn't there in the first place.
So what say you to that, Dave?
Well, it literally is ChatGPT. Like, literally, that is what Axon is built it on. So I'm a little bit shocked that he would make such a claim like that.
I think what he's saying is it's not searching the web. It's only pulling from the transcript that, comes from the body camera.
I mean, like, does he actually know that? Did he review the code? Like, what does he know? Where is he basing this off of? Is he basing it off of the marketing materials from Axon? Did he have a third party come in and analyze the system to make sure it's not pulling in mistakes? I don't think so, because I haven't seen anybody actually do that. But I will say, earlier on the top of this, you talked about how it was cutting time from the writing process. Well, I think if you work in journalism or you work in academia or you edit publications, most editors will tell you that it often takes as long to fact check and edit a document that it takes to write it in the first place. So the idea that this is somehow cutting time, what it's actually cutting time is the time from reviewing and getting the facts right. It's just somebody throwing it in and they've already cut their time, so they're not even going to read it. They're just going to go, boom, I can blame it on the AI if it's a mistake. Just blame it on the AI. And that's not going to fly with your student in a school, your student turning in his master's dissertation. But somehow we're willing to accept that from the police? I don't think so.
I've reviewed a lot of police reports in my time as a journalist, and I've noticed that in some cases you will get visual descriptions of a suspect. The suspect, in a drunk driving case, appeared to be, had red eyes and appeared to be drunk, etc. You don't necessarily get that when it's just an audio transcription, though, right?
No, you don't. You don't get that at all. And if we think about slang, that's going to have serious consequences. Like, let's say I'm holding a sandwich and I really love it, and I say, "Oh, this is the bomb." Does AI think I'm holding a sandwich if I didn't say the word sandwich out loud? Or does it think I'm holding a bomb and threatening the officer with, immediate explosion? I mean, these are just stupid computers. They might call it artificial intelligence, but ultimately these are just things that want to give you the words it thinks you want heard. It gives you the words that you think wants said or written. It's just trying to please you. Getting things accurate is not part of its programming, because ultimately we're talking about trusting officers with their judgment, with their observations. That's what we're losing if you have this turned over to AI.
Yeah. Well, then what would be your solution? So, police departments are saying, hey, this is great. This frees up officer time to, let them be out on the streets and actually patrol and spend less time actually sitting in their cars writing these reports. Is there a technological solution, or are you just in sort of favor of we've got to have these departments appropriately staffed at all times?
So, when I hear that it's going to make things, is the police department talking about laying off people? Are they talking they don't need the funds anymore because they've made it more efficient? I don't think we're going to see any general change in officers, except maybe they hire a few more and tell them it's okay to be lazy.
There are other AI uses, of course, in policing that we're seeing right now. Facial recognition software is being used to identify suspects. As of last month, or actually in April, the ACLU came out and said at least 14 people have been wrongfully arrested because of facial recognition errors. Where does the AI report writing fit in the landscape of AI uses right now that you're seeing in law enforcement?
I think we're going to start seeing, it took a few years for those face recognition errors to raise up into the courts, for them to make it, surface in the public media. I think, it'll probably be just a matter of months before we start seeing more and more of draft one related problems with the wrong person being arrested, the wrong person being charged, because an officer put too much faith in draft one getting it right. So, for example, maybe an officer made a mistake, didn't realize that the AI said this person confessed to a crime. It was a total mistake, but the officer didn't bother to look and fix it. The next guy who looks at that report is going to think it's telling the truth and that this person is the avowed criminal or whatever. Errors end up populating the whole system, and then once they have AIs looking at stuff generated by AIs, looking at stuff generated by AIs, you've just polluted the whole data system with errors. So I don't think this is a win for public safety. I don't think it's a win for the officers. I don't think it's a win for the public. I don't think it's a win for crimes getting solved more or cases being closed. I think what it is a error system that's just going to result in people who didn't do anything wrong having accusations leveled at them.
In our last conversation, you and I were talking about AI-powered border surveillance towers. We talked about the idea of license plate readers as well that are positioned along the border, and you mentioned your concerns with that. I'm wondering, is there any AI use case in law enforcement that you do feel comfortable with? Or is it a matter of the technology just isn't ready yet? Or are you opposed to the technology being used ever in law enforcement?
So listen, if the pitch here was that this software was going to go in and flag all of the typos, flag things that, hey, these two things don't line up. Maybe you want to check these to make sure that you said red shirt here, you said blue shirt here. Maybe it automatically fills in the timestamps. That I think could be useful. I think maybe, I mean, I find AI translation to be very useful in my own work, being able to read news articles in other languages. So I could definitely see a use case where you might have an officer in an emergency situation with somebody with a regional South American accent, and it's going to take a while to find out who that translator is. But that person really needs to communicate that there's somebody injured over here, or there's somebody stuck under a car. I could see cases like that where it's not generating evidence that's going to be used in a whole series of court proceedings. I could see that as something that's beneficial. I could certainly see places here and there where AI is being used as a tool as opposed to being used as a replacement. I think when you have AI write your first draft, it is replacing your first draft. When you have AI coming in and looking for typos, that still is your work at the core of it. You've used something to help you do a better job, not use somebody to replace the job you should be doing. If I might make another point, I just want to say about the criminal justice system in general. Officers got to get up and testify. Officers got to get up and solve crimes. Having an officer run an incident through their head and type out, memorialize what they saw, there's value in that in law enforcement. There's value with an officer not relying on, his body-worn camera to be like an external memory so he doesn't have to ever think about it again. And I would say that is something that people should be very concerned about being lost, is that this very crucial function of the officer's brain in processing a crime, that's part of policing. That's probably one of the most important parts of policing. And yet, Axon's trying to replace that for money.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of changes in policing and in so many industries right now. Dave Moss is the investigations director at the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Dave, thanks for being back on Generation AI.
Thank you. Next time I'm just going to have ChatGPT come talk to you for me.
We appreciate the human-to-human connection here on the show for sure. Hey, stay with us. Much more Generation AI continues right after this. Welcome back to Generation AI. AI is rapidly changing medicine, and one of the most successful uses so far has been detecting melanoma. In several studies, AI systems were just as good, if not better, than dermatologists at identifying melanoma from photos, and that has major life-saving potential. My next guest is the president and COO of the world's largest nonprofit funder of melanoma research. Stephanie Kaufman is with the Melanoma Research Alliance. Stephanie, welcome to Generation AI.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
We're so glad you're here. So lay out this important topic for us. Explain to us the stakes. What does survivability look like for melanoma right now?
Absolutely. So melanoma continues to be a growing public health emergency that a lot of people don't always think about in terms of their conversation when it comes to cancer diagnoses. It's the deadliest, but yes, also very highly preventable form of skin cancer. 112,000 people will be diagnosed in the U.S. this year, and the incidences of melanoma has doubled in the last 30 years. However, 90% of melanoma diagnoses are highly preventable in terms of protecting your skin from cumulative UV rays, and you have a 99% survival rate over a 5-year span if it's detected early. And I would say for a lot of cancers, if you can get early detection, all the better. However, melanoma is a very, very fast-moving cancer. So if it's diagnosed at a much advanced state, your survival rate drops to 36%.
Wow.
And in fact, 20 years ago, it was less than 10%. So we've had a lot of great treatment options that are in the marketplace, but it's a very fast-moving cancer. It spreads to your brain very, very quickly. So it's really important for us to find ways to create better early detection technologies so that people can get it treated quickly and early and improve their survivability rates.
So against that backdrop, here comes AI. How are doctors using it right now to change outcomes for patients?
So in the case of melanoma, it's been a huge game changer for us. So 40% of the United States lives in what we call a dermatology desert, which means they don't have access to a dermatologist. It may be several 100 miles away. It could be a 5 to 6 month wait before you can see a dermatologist. And so what we're really excited about within dermatology is the ability to take a photo at some point, if you can do it even with your primary care physician, get it quickly into a pathologist labs. It can be somewhere else within the United States, and be able to triage, know that that biopsy, that skin mole looks fine. This is suspicious. Let's do some active surveillance, or we need to get you in somewhere quickly. And our ability to get someone into then a treatment option quickly can make all the difference in the world. 5 to 6 months, if you're waiting for that skin check, that could already move you from maybe stage 0 diagnosis to stage 3 very quickly. So I think AI is really improving early detection technologies, and it's also accelerating research and really helping us close those gaps that we see in terms of areas that don't have access to dermatologists or care.
So you just mentioned about how AI is involved in that detection process where patients can take a photo, pass it along to an expert provider. How about on the research side of things? Is it speeding up the research for this disease?
Oh, absolutely. If you think about the incredible data sets that exist in science in terms of how we look at data, pathology results, how melanoma may be advancing in a tumor cell environment, the ability for AI to help us scale that data in a way that it's not as practical with just even the human element, I think is really helping us to advance clinical care, the ability to match you with better clinical trials, the ability to enable our researchers to kind of focus in on where their theories are going, and having, that data be computed at, seconds versus 2 days is really changing, I think, the outcomes of what we're going to see in healthcare over the next several years.
Is AI also making treatments for this or research for this more personalized? I mean, in the history of medicine, typically patients have just been given sort of the statistical average or whatever was sort of tested at the time. But is this allowing more personalized care?
Well, I think that's the hope and the desire of any of us in healthcare, and certainly within cancer research. What most people, how cancer may have been treated previously, it used to be maybe you'd get on the conveyor belt and you're going to have chemotherapy and you're going to do all what was kind of the standard of care. Well, in the case of melanoma, it actually doesn't react well to chemotherapy. It does very well with immunotherapy, so harnessing your body's immune system. And everyone's, in our case, cancer diagnosis is different. It's usually a collection of diseases. In the case of melanomas, 90% of those melanomas, as I mentioned, are caused from cumulative UV exposure, but we do have rare subtypes. There's uveal melanoma, it's a melanoma of the eye, not caused by UV exposure. There's melanoma on your bottom of your hands, soles of your feet, again, not UV exposure. So what we're trying to do in AI is helping us is unravel the biology of those tumors, understand are there some genetic mutations, because every patient coming in is very unique in terms of what type of melanoma or what type of cancer they've been diagnosed, and then how do we personalize the care so we don't create situations where chemotherapy would never have worked on that patient and they've had to go through, years ago, they had to go through chemotherapy that may not have made that difference.
That makes a lot of sense. With any health field, there's always concern about health disparities. And especially with AI, there's a lot of discussion about whether AI can sometimes reinforce bias in a healthcare system. How are you thinking about that? What are your thoughts?
I think it's a very real risk, a very real concern in terms of bias in data sets. The algorithms are only going to pick up and scrape that data that's out there. And within the case of melanoma and skin health, one of big areas of concern for us, and we've been investing in this area for a number of years, is many algorithms that are looking at skin tend to have been based on skin that is fair, very fair.
Right. The
fair
training data was
complexions.
limited. Right. Yeah.
And very treatment data was very, very limited. So we've been working on creating open data sets that looks at the full range of skin colors, because we want the AI to be able to look at someone who is may have a darker skin color, be able to differentiate that mole from a darker complexion, so it can actually see whether or not that mole is it's fine, it's benign, or there's something that we need to look at and we need to look at immediately. And I would say in the last couple of years, some of the investments we've made in there to create this open data population set is helping to improve that area. But that still is a big concern in terms of medical research has not always been, across all populations, and so we need to solve for that.
The Melanoma Research Alliance has been involved in or funded the development, I think, of 17 FDA-approved treatments for this disease. That's an incredible number. But when you think about the impact of AI, do you think the bigger impact will be on finding a new treatment or on developing better early detection?
I think where we see the most opportunity for patients is earlier diagnoses, number one. I think that's really what's going to help change the landscape for patients who are facing this disease, and I think facing cancer at large. I also think that AI is going to help inform better treatment decisions and really enable patients and healthcare providers to have closer conversations, because they're going to have more information that's going to help them have those discussions. And I also think it's going to help improve survival, but I think probably the big area, the big win for us is going to be in that early detection area, which is a game changer across pretty much all diseases, but certainly in the space that I'm in.
And it's fascinating to see that the lessons learned with melanoma research are being transferred to other areas of medicine as well. Stephanie Kaufman is with the Melanoma Research Alliance. Stephanie, thanks so much for being on Generation AI.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week with another episode of Generation AI. You can catch up on old episodes anytime at azfamily.com/GenAI. We'll see you in the future.